It really is a privilege to be here. While the world is clearly aware of Tehran's continued and stringent opposition to the MEK, to include the atrocities that have been perpetrated against the innocent civilians at Camp Ashraf, as well as Iran's growing influence over the Maliki regime, very little is known about the covert mechanisms that Tehran employs to continue to propagate the falsehoods that are being levied continuously against the MEK and in promoting continued oppression and violence against the innocent residents of Camp Ashraf and soon to be Camp Liberty. Key among these mechanisms, and indeed the most prominent, remains the Iranian Ministry of Intelligence and Security, the MOIS. When you look at an intelligence or security organization in any country, they're tasked with maintaining their country's secrets and protecting the legitimately elected administration there. The MOIS is neither traditional nor do they abide by any universally established codes of conduct. Their sole objective is the continuation of the regime and the eradication of its enemies, and they view the MEK as its primary enemy. MOIS agents operate throughout Iran as well as across the globe. They target dissidents or anyone whom they believe or are told are potential threats to the regime. Their activities are not limited to intimidation, assassination, and torture. Now, while these are certainly the most egregious of their actions, the MOIS also engages in more subtle activities which are nearly equally damaging on the political front. These activities are designed to present a different face of Iran to the world. It's not the face that we know, it's not the face that you obviously know, or that the residents of Camp Ashraf have known for a quarter of a century. It depicts the Iranian MOIS, sends a message, subtly and not so subtly, by depicting those that stand up for democracy, who stand up for basic human rights, such as freedoms of expression and association, to be free from arbitrary arrest and detention, as well as torture. They depict them as subversives, as terrorists. They do this through propaganda, what we call in the spy business, disinformation or misinformation. The MOIS is very good at this. They've been trained by a number of other hostile services in the world. They often recruit journalists, maybe unwittingly, newspaper stringers, and now with the worldwide media through various social networks, it's much easier to put false stories out there. They put completely false accounts into this media throughout the region and throughout the world. Such disinformation campaigns like the erroneous stories previously talking about Camp Ashraf was harboring female suicide bombers, or the members of the MEK were responsible for plotting to blow up airliners. They seek both the sensational as well as the sublime, though they seem to have a tendency for the more outlandish, as was the case when they tried to portray the innocent residents of Camp Ashraf as harboring and training female assassins. In essence, the best way to characterize the MOIS would be as a secret police organization, focused solely on the perpetuation of the current regime in Tehran and the expansion of Iran's influence in the region. And we see that very clearly in Iraq. I would classify the MOIS, and I know I have many who would agree with me, as a terrorist organization. It is not the MEK. It is the MOIS. They're very well funded. They're well equipped. They've had extensive training. They have a history of atrocities perpetrated against their own people and against those that they perceive as enemies of the regime. They have conducted political assassinations, the serial murders of dissidents and intellectuals, both in their own country and around the world. And one only has to look at how the Ahmadinejad government has treated protesters in the aftermath of their sham 2009 presidential elections to see just what they are capable of doing, not to mention their recent attempts at a failed assassination plan inside Washington, D.C. We see it demonstrated yet again, most recently in Baghdad's interpretation of the recently concluded MOU. Iran's continuous eroding of the previously agreed upon conditions to include a dramatic reduction in the size of the habitable space within Camp Liberty, their refusal to allow for the transfer of personal possessions and the growing surveillance and eavesdropping efforts that are being installed in the confines of the camp as we speak. Not to mention erecting high walls and a near constant police force that will be inside the camp for less than a half a kilometer. Now, these recent efforts and the ones that are ongoing were done in all likelihood with the approval of, if not the direct participation, by the MOIS. It's yet another clear example of how the Maliki government, through the manipulation and control by the Iranian government, is seeking the systematic eradication of the residents of Camp Ashraf. Maliki has already stated that he has arrest warrants for over 120 of the residents, and has already mentioned that he wants the leaders extradited to Tehran. And as other members of the panel have already mentioned, again, this is an effort to dismantle the MEK.